Ta-da! We are live, live, live. All right. Well, happy Tuesday, beginning of the new week here at Eight Questions With. Of course, you know me, I'm Patrick. I'm the host. Um, don't know if the Cheetah will make it up here for a guest appearance, but you never know. Um, Tonight, we are talking to Executive Assistant Ruth Hill. She's also a very proficient and excellent reviewer herself. She has a website where she reviews movies and TV series, as well as conducting interviews with many actors and entertainers, producers, and whatnot. So basically, we are interviewing an interviewer who also manages to be an executive assistant to actor Paul Greene. Paul Greene is a singer-songwriter who is very, very popular in the Hallmark world. He's one of their leading stars. And so she is an assistant to Mr. Greene. She handles a lot of his interviews and social media aspects and whatnot. Uh, but we're going to talk to her how that happened, because it wasn't, walking up to be an executive assistant isn't a job that you necessarily walk up and apply for. There has to be a little bit more to that. So we will be talking to Ruth. I've actually known Ruth for many, many years. Her and I first met on Twitter, and we talked quite a bit on there. And then, of course, I left Twitter and I found Ruth on Instagram. And so we've been chatting here and there since. And I just thought she would be a fascinating person to talk to. I wanted to ask her many, many questions. So there I go. I went ahead and sent a question. I sent a request, see if she would like to sit down and talk to us, and she graciously said yes. And so we are going to have a nice chat. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is like a peer-to-peer type of interview. I love these type of interviews myself. I had one with Laura Dove from Five Little Doves, bloggers or writers or whatnot, not authors. I want to get that straight. I'm not an author. I'm not that skilled. Ruth is probably a far more skilled writer than I am. In fact, I know she is, without a doubt. Um, I'm a good interviewer. I'll say that. So I don't exactly I fit in the boat. May not drive the boat, but I fit in it. uh, so as far as talking to Ruth, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very entertaining. We're gonna have some laughs. We're gonna have some fun. I'm looking forward to this. I really genuinely, like with Laura and with other writers, like Jennifer Sullivan's going to be coming up here. I get really excited for interviews like this because they're so cool. The people I know them, and they're really, really cool. They're really sweet people, and um, generally, if you notice, every person I talk to has that common trait to it. They are very nice people. They're nice people. Before they're anything else, they're nice people. And that's what I really look for when I ask people to interview. Um, I don't ask everybody. There's a few people I just wouldn't ask. I just not interested, and that happens. It's like watching a movie. You don't always necessarily like to watch the movie you're watching, or reading the book you're reading, or stuff like that. Same thing goes with interviews. Some people just don't, they don't really they don't catch your attention. But I have to say that Ruth did right off the bat. I was really impressed with Ruth, not because of her writing or her interview skills. Um, there's two things that made me really respect Ruth Hill like no tomorrow. One, she was so nervous. She actually went on her YouTube channel. She did a concert, and she was scared. She was scared. She was scared. She was honestly, and she's like nervous, but she did it. She went ahead and she did it, and she sounded lovely. And yes, and that's coming from a opinion of a professional talent buyer. Thank you very much. So I'm telling you, she sang fine. She was great, and she overcame her fright, and she crushed it. And the other thing is when I was watching her on Twitter, how very compassionate she was in answering a lot of people's questions or whatnot. A lot of people always were really short on Twitter. One of the reasons why I left. But hey, Katie. But Ruth always had time. Has always had time to talk to anybody, and she will answer your questions as the best she can. She doesn't ignore anybody. I really appreciate that. I watch that. You know, you sit there and you watch people's behavior. And I always knew that Ruth was really sassy, but really compassionate at the same time. So um, when I heard that she got the job working with Paul Greene, I wasn't surprised at all. That seems like a natural fit. Um, I've known other people who've done that. Wendy Shepard, who also became a publicist for a few actors, just basically was good at her job. She walked into it and people noticed it and they said, you know what? I like what you're doing. Can you do it for me? And Wendy Shepard has. So, and yeah, I'm going to try to get Wendy. I'm going to try to get Wendy on the show. I'm really trying to because I would love to talk to her. Hi, Diana. How are you? Yes, we're back at it. We're back interviewing. We will be talking to Ruth Hill in a few minutes. She is a writer and an executive assistant to an actor named Paul Greene, and she's also an interviewer. She's a blogger, um, so she can do a lot of different things, and she's a singer. We'll be talking to her about that as well. So yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take this time while we got a chance for people to start coming in. And please, if you don't mind, those with, if you guys would like to share us out, that would be awesome. Um, as always, I'm still not there to the community tab. I'm still 58 away, so I can't share myself out on YouTube yet. Um, so trying to get there. I will be able to put this on Pinterest, which I will. Okay. And I will take advantage of Kevin K's, aka Tuber Chat's generosity, and I will share us out to Reddit. This is a great tool right here. Kevin K has created a Reddit page, and he allows us to. Thank you, Diana. I saw that. Thank you so much. He has allowed us to go to his Reddit page and to share our content off his Reddit page. So every time I do an interview, I go over there and I drop that down and on the Reddit page. What a generous guy Kevin is. He's also started a Tuber Chat public group on Facebook, which he's gotten up to almost 100 members already. 100 members already, and he just started it not that long ago. So yeah, Kevin is one of my favorite people for sure, Katie. He has done so much, and we'll be having Kevin on next week. As a matter of fact, a week from tomorrow, Kevin will be on the show. He will be my co-host as we interview Brian John of the paranormal group Hunterphobia. So it'll be a lot of fun. In fact, let me go ahead and break out you know what's coming. Breaking out the calendar. Showing up my calendar here. Got a calendar. All right. So while we wait for our guest, so tonight is Ruth Hill, as we know, and thank you guys for all showing up so early. This is amazing. I see we already got 6 going. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Tomorrow night will be Mike Markoff, actor Mike Markoff, and for all you ladies out there, and I know there will be some ladies out there. You'll probably want to come over and check this out because Mike Markoff is one of the most handsomest guys you'll probably see. And not only that, but he is absolutely a cool ass dude. He is a man's man. He is one of the trilogy, along with Mike Ferguson and Josh Hahn. They did the show Death Squad together. That's how I met Mike. He is a very deep thinking and very compassionate and passionate man, actor. One of my favorite people. Definitely will be here tomorrow night, and we'll have a great show. On Thursday, the 18th, we have actress model Cami Storm, who is also moving in behind the scenes, as far behind the camera. We'll be talking about her career, and she will talk about her acting. And she's directed a movie called Dark Winter. Dark Winter. I put Dark Water in my description. Yeah, that's not right, Sully. It's actually Dark Winter. So she'll be here at 8 o'clock, and then Friday, a special time, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. I thought it was going to be 8 o'clock, but it got moved up to 2 o'clock. We will be talking with Chloe Trioskos. I'm sure I'm killing that name, but she'll be here talking about her movie, introducing Judea, along with recurring on the righteous gemstones. On the next Tuesday, we have Josh Maybe of the group Rogue Origin Films, and yeah, these guys are absolutely flipping amazing. They're a group of actors and stuntmen who make short films, action-oriented or short films that are just amazing to watch. They're top drawer. They're grade A fight scenes, and they do short films. They're almost like pitches. They could almost be like a pitch. They did one recently with Cowboy Bebop that we'll be talking about, along with my favorite that I've seen so far was this Odd Job, A View to a Kill, from with the had Josh Hahn in it. They did that. And then I already mentioned the 24th with Kevin, and then on the 25th we'll have Jennifer Sullivan come in there. All right, our guest is here. Let's open the doors and let her in.
I have to leave. So okay, so do you want me to end the call, or do you guys want to keep this?
You're gonna have to.
Yeah, I have to get off. Okay, so I'll end the call. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. You guys,
okay.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Love you. Bye. All right. I get this done first. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's okay.
All right. So we're watching a pro at work right now.
Yeah, we're changing the guard here. Okay. It's actually what it is.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, what I mean is my mom and I live with my parents, so my mom was actually finishing up a call that she had to do because she does Zoom calls and she does all sorts of things as well. We're very busy here, and I just got off with my employer, honestly, just moments ago to come to the call. So it's great.
Yeah, I was actually tempted just to stay quiet and just hold my breath and just watch to see how far we could go. You know.
I know. It's honestly okay. I am here, and I am very, very excited to have you. That you brought me on. Thank you.
No, I am too. I'm very excited. I was just telling the folks before you got here how you and I met. You and I met through Twitter, and it was awesome because I was sitting there and I was like, Twitter sometimes can be really good for human observation. I mean, if you sit back and you sit there and watch people on their tweets, you get an idea a little bit of who they are a little bit. At least for me, I did, and I commented that one of the things that really caught my attention was how kind you were to every single person.
Oh.
Now I can't say the same. I'll be honest with you.
Now, Patrick, I think you're pretty kind. I didn't really see mean stuff. I don't. You didn't have any mean tweets, as far as I know.
No, only against the political stuff, because that's the reason why I left. It got to be such a cesspool. Yeah. Hi, Jeanette. How are you? Jeanette Lemon's here. She's saying hi, Ruth.
Ooh. Okay. Hi, Jeanette. Yep. I know Jeanette. Yeah.
And Katie from Popping the Popcorn says hi, Ruth. That's awesome.
Hi, Katie. Yeah, yeah. So great.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Katie says I'm a nice guy. I am a nice guy. I am a
Yeah,
very nice
true.
guy. Um,
Yeah.
but there's certain people that, in all aspects, everybody has that one certain kind of person that just rubs you the wrong way. It's human nature. Um,
Hmm.
but I never really saw that. I mean, watched you how gentle you were and very, very kind talking to our friend Anne, who is
Hmm.
gosh, Anne's got to be in her 80s now.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
she is. Yeah, and
yeah.
she's often. I think she's homebound basically, unless I think her daughter comes to pick her. She talks about how her daughter comes and picks her up sometimes so she can get out places, but lots of times she's at home by herself, which is so hard. I mean, you feel bad. There's a lot of older people who are not able to get out, and then the pandemic happened, and then they're really homebound because the people, their family members that might be able to come by occasionally and take them places, they're suddenly stuck at home,
Yeah.
and so it was
I left
hard.
I left the pandemic before. I left Twitter before the pandemic hit.
Okay, yeah.
Um, I left these, so I was, but it's one of those. She was one of those people that I wanted to keep. It's back in my head. In fact, it's one of the
Mhm.
first things I asked you. How's she doing? I mean, it's like I was always. Um, but I also noticed too, and I had to talk about this because I was so proud of you. I really
Mhm.
was. I think this really tipped it for me. Is when you put on your musical concert on your YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, yeah. The whole music journey has been one of those things that I didn't used to talk about very much, which is kind of funny because I graduated from college with a major in music, and it was vocal music. I mean, I used to perform all the time. I grew up performing. I played piano, I sing, and but I listened to a lot of people that told me I was that they didn't either like my music or they didn't like my voice. I was too operatic. I was too strong, whatever the case was. And I've been told that I sing like a cat. I had somebody tell me that. And I was like, okay. And so
Sing
you
like a
hear all the,
cat.
yeah. So you hear all these negative things sometimes. And what, if you're not really thinking about it, at least for me, it was kind of like, okay, all these people are telling me all these negative things. I was married for 10 years to someone who had a very negative view of my voice. And so I just thought, okay, I'll be quiet and I'll leave my music alone and I'll just kind of sing to myself. And it was actually it was right, it would have been the Christmas before the pandemic. So going back to 2019. And my current employer, Paul Greene, was giving a concert at Carnegie Hall, a part of a concert in Carnegie Hall, I should say. It was a big benefit concert. And I attended that, and I suddenly thought, it's time for me to get back to music. It kind of reignited all this music stuff. And I remember him saying, when I mentioned that, I want to get back into music, he said, don't think about it, just create. Just create. And, and, um, just one moment. No, I didn't. No. Okay. All right. And so I began singing, and so Paul was nice enough. About this time the pandemic had happened. That's what I went back to my singing, and he was nice enough to say, "Hey, I've got a great voice teacher. You want me to hook you up with this voice teacher?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I've been with that voice teacher for like a year and a half now, and so that's helped me to also reignite that interest. So when I did the YouTube concert, um, it was just, I thought, I want to get back to doing this, and so that was why I did that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because I mean, what I noticed more than anything else, sitting there, and yeah, you definitely could tell that you were really nervous.
Hmm. Yeah.
My background is actually music too.
Hmm.
I was a talent buyer,
Yeah.
so for 10 years in California, so I saw hundreds and booked hundreds of bands from all over, very well known bands, and so I know the how a person approaches the mic. but you were nervous. You were
Mhm.
nervous. You were,
Mhm.
we were there to support you. I thought you were so brave, actually, more than anything else. I thought you were brave. I said, I know that she must have been, because most of the time when you get up there and you're nervous, I don't care how good of a singer you are. If
Mhm.
you're nervous or anxious or anything
Mhm.
else, your voice, your throat's going to tighten. It's just a
Mhm.
natural thing,
Right.
and so it could cause your voice to go up or down.
Mhm.
But as soon as you opened your mouth, and as soon as your first note hit,
Mhm. Mhm.
wow, you were in your element. You
Yeah.
were you were you were you were you were a little bit. How did I sound? How did I sound? But
Mhm.
you were right there just by yourself, and you were just going for it.
Yeah.
And hats off to you. And as a professional talent buyer, such as I am,
Mhm.
I thought you did fine. I thought you did very well. I was very
Well,
happy to
thanks.
see it. Yeah. I mean, so if anybody has any doubts about that, you tell them to come talk to us. Uh,
Okay. Thanks.
yeah,
I know I've
I
been.
really, I was actually waiting for more. I was sitting going like, oh, she's done this once. Now we're going to get this on a regular basis.
Oh
And
no.
I have not heard anything from you for a while.
Well,
But again, you're insanely busy.
right. Well, that I have done. Part of my issue is we do have we live in the country and we don't have really good reception. As far as even internet, it can be really really hard. So that is part of it. So I was not really happy with the way the video came across. Just because when I watched it back, I was like, oh, it was blurry a lot of times, and so I didn't like that. But I actually am working on being able to do it again. I've been doing some research into some equipment, hoping that I can find something to make it a better quality. I mean, I realized the audio was great. I just want it to be even better. So I am working on that, and I have released a few um, songs on since then on YouTube that were they're not live, but they are on YouTube, and so there are a few there. So there will be more. It is actually in the works. Yeah, I've been very busy, but it is actually in the works because I would like to do more.
Uh, of course, our friend TJ mentions the good old standby about being nervous in front of a crowd. Is to imagine everybody in their underwear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so we're gonna revisit your music, but I want to circle back
Mhm.
because we have to go back to the beginning. You know this because you're an interviewer yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about Ruth Hill in the early years.
Okay.
Um, so we're
Go
I
for
know,
it.
believe me. I'm gonna hit you some questions you haven't heard yet. I mean,
Okay.
it's gonna be fun to stump the interviewer.
Okay. Go for it.
Uh,
I'm ready.
all right, so let's talk a little bit about where you grew up with. Obviously, you just mentioned you were married for 10 years, but before that, you were where did you grow up at? Have you always been in the country? Have you always been a country girl?
Well, that's a good question. So I'm actually originally from Tacoma, Washington. So that'd be Washington State, not Washington D.C. I For so long I grew up in Washington State, and I would go places and say, "Well, I'm from Washington." "Oh, you mean Washington D.C.?" "No, Washington State." So I began to learn that I always had to say Washington State because people would just assume Washington D.C. But I'm from Tacoma, Washington, so that's near Seattle. And so I did grow up in the city. Um, so that so I really country living did not happen until I moved back to Washington State, um, probably about 13, 14 years ago, something like that. And so I grew up in, so of course, my parents are both still living. I'm actually, so is my brother. I have an older brother. He's 6 years older. And so I really, for the most part, had a really great childhood. The interesting little tidbit that I always like to tell is for 3 years, my parents were divorced and then they got back together, got remarried. And so I got to be the flower girl for their remarriage ceremony. So that's always a really neat memory. Um, So, and during that time, so for 3 years, my brother and my mom and I, we lived in Long Beach, Washington. So that's like on the coast near Oregon, and that's where my mom's parents lived. And so that was so I also had that from like my early years, like preschool, kindergarten, first grade. That's where I was, and then we came back to Tacoma, and that's when I really got into music. I took piano lessons, and I got very interested in old movies, old Hollywood, older music. I wasn't even watching the new movies out there. I grew up with all the classics. I
Right.
was growing up watching all the classic musicals and movies, and trying to sing. Like I loved Judy Garland. She was like a really early inspiration on me. Barbara Streisand. And then as far as and then what I would do is I would read these biographies and autobiographies of these actors because I was absolutely fascinated. I just loved old Hollywood. I just would get so into it, and I was a walking book of knowledge really when it came to a lot of these actors. And so even as a child, I wanted to be able to somehow, I didn't necessarily want to be an actress. I did consider being a singer later, but I wanted to be able to work with actors, and I wanted to be like a friend of actors. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't even understand that, but that was just like my little dream off there. And I just had this like whole idea of, well, wouldn't it be great to to be able to interact with these actors, so that was my early life, I guess I would
Now, I mean, it's one of those things that since you were so small when your parents divorced,
say. Hmm.
when you got older, did you ever go up there and ask them what happened? I mean, were you ever curious? Yeah.
Good question. Good question. We were really pretty open about that. So I I did go. We had that discussion. Many times there was always a real openness as far as that went. And it was really just that there were I think with all marriages there you go through those periods of time where things are not as good, and that's a point when um you can make the decision: are you committed to the marriage? Do you stay or do you leave? And with my mom, it was just like she just kind of came to that point of, she kind of had enough. There were some issues, and there were some issues from her past, from my dad's past, all those things, that all that is a part of life. And it was really as a result of her, during that 3 years, she did a lot of work on herself, got very involved. We'd always been involved in the church. I grew up in the church. And and it was through some counseling she did with both my dad, and she and my dad did counseling with a particular pastor and his wife. And that's when my mom said, we're going to come back together. Um, and it's really a beautiful story of restoration. You don't always hear those kinds of stories. And I'm not going to say that they're coming back together made everything absolutely perfect. It's not like, nobody has a perfect marriage. Nobody has a perfect life. We know that. Um, but there were a lot of really positive changes that happened as a result during that 3 years that they were apart. There were a lot of good things that happened that brought them back together.
Um, so, how old were you when this happened? You said you were like really young.
Right. I was about, I think I was either 3 or 4. Yeah, I think I was about 4 when they got divorced, and I was 7 when they got back together, got remarried. And, or yeah, that should be right. And it affected my brother a lot more because my brother, actually, with him being 6 years older,
Mm.
um, he became very rebellious after my parents got remarried, and he had a really tumultuous uh, teenage years. Very much. I was the perfect child when I was growing up. That was kind of was who I was. I was the one that straight A's, never got in any trouble. Didn't do it. That was who I was, and my brother was the one that they had to watch out for because he was the one who was always getting involved in things that he shouldn't have been involved in. And I mean, since that time, I mean, my brother and I are really close now, and he's gone on to have an incredible life. He really was able to. He had his time of working through things
Sure.
and coming back to the church because he walked away from the church and he came back to the church.
What church did you attend to, Ruth?
So I grew up conservative Baptist was actually what I grew up, and so that would be like not very very strict Baptist, I guess I'd say, and it was a small church, and then we moved over to being Assemblies of God, and I actually went to Assemblies of God school for like 2nd through 8th grade. I was at Assemblies of God school, and we stayed with that church and actually when I went to college, I went to Assemblies of God college. All things. Now, if you remember, I was from Washington State. I went clear across the country to Florida and went to an Assemblies of God college in Florida.
Wow.
And yeah.
Now, was that your first time you ever left home? I mean, that was on your own.
Yeah, yeah, definitely right. I'd always been very close to home, and in fact, a lot of people were shocked. My dad was convinced I was doing the wrong thing. I had teachers that couldn't believe that you're leaving to go clear across the country. And a lot of people, it just didn't make sense. But it was really interesting how it all came about, because these Assemblies of God colleges, there's several of them throughout the United States. And the one that was close to me in the Seattle area actually cost more to go there than to go clear across the country to Florida, because in Florida, the cost of living was a lot less, the cost of colleges was a lot less, and I had a better scholarship down there. So it was really interesting how all that came about. It was the first time I'd done that. Yeah, I got on a plane at the age of 18, had never seen this college before, never been there, and I got on the plane and I was there, from August and didn't come home till Christmas.
How was the culture shock for you?
It wasn't really that bad. I mean, it was there were a lot of Southerners there, but I really loved that. I didn't have any major issues. I mean, it was nice. It wasn't a massive college. It was a smaller college and very close knit. I was living on campus. I got along with my roommate, and then but then after 6 weeks, she decided that she wanted to move out. So then I had a room by myself, which I hadn't even planned on. And so, but really, it was all, for the most part, very positive. I don't know. I've been one that can adapt somewhat easily. I'm not going to say that I always adapt easily, but I'll just kind of go with the flow. And it was like, okay, this is the way we do things. And okay, if you want to say that I have an accent because I'm from up north, that's fine. I don't care, whatever. I didn't fight it. And I just I just did my thing, found some people to kind of become friends with, and actually met the person that became my husband there. I met him like my second semester there, and I had some friends that kind of matched us up, and we dated for 6 weeks, and I got engaged. And I'd never dated before. He was the first guy I ever dated, and it was a whirlwind romance. Although we waited a year to get married because I wanted to get another year of school, and he was actually going off to graduate school. And so although we got engaged after 6 weeks, we waited a year, although we were separated during a lot of that time. And it was a beautiful wedding, everything. I mean, it was really it's all really good. I mean, honestly, although I'm no longer married and it ended in divorce, it was a little bit, I don't think I think divorce is always difficult. It's a little messy though. There were some messy things because mental illness figured into all this. But, but I wouldn't have my daughter without having gotten married. I have a wonderful daughter who is now in college herself. She's 18. She's doing one. She's only a 3-hour drive, but she's had a wonderful first semester. I'll be
No,
seeing
no,
her.
no Florida for her, huh?
No, she didn't go that far. I know. I was the one that that took this leap and went clear across to Florida. No, she's just a 3-hour drive, but I haven't seen her since dropped her off at college in September, and so I'll be seeing her next week in person for the first time since then. But she's had a wonderful. She's having a great time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Florida would be a lot different from one time you went down to college.
Yes, Florida was very different, but I loved the weather. I've always been one who prefers the hot weather, so I really loved the climate in Florida. Um, Actually, I went down my first year, first semester there was actually when Hurricane Andrew hit. And thankfully, I wasn't in the path of Hurricane Andrew, but I remember that was, in fact, I think people made jokes about the fact that, well, Ruth goes to Florida and a hurricane hits. I remember people saying that. I said, isn't that funny? It's like,
it's always a little weird when you hear a hurricane and then you hear your name behind it.
well,
Hurricane Andrew or Hurricane Patrick. I don't think there's ever been a Hurricane Patrick, so I think I'm think I'm. Yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of weird. It's like,
right.
Why do you have to why do you have to name a hurricane after me? It's like, why me? Why not Joe or John?
Yeah, right.
So did you graduate down there and from the school, from your college? You graduated in music, right?
Yep, I even graduated a semester early. So I did my 4 years and 3.5 years. So I came in with some credits, and I got it. I graduated as a married woman as well, because I got married. I went into my 3rd year of college as a married woman, and I still kept up with all my classes. I graduated. I think there were only 2 classes I didn't get an A in, and everything else. So I graduated with really high marks, and I graduated. It was a major in music, and I fully intended to go to graduate school, and that didn't happen. And so it ended up that I became a music teacher, which I hadn't planned on doing. And so I was teaching music part-time at 2 different Christian schools in the area. So I was still in Florida at that point. And my then husband was working construction. That was his full-time job. He was a carpenter, construction worker, and his ultimate goal was that he wanted us to go. Okay, this is another really interesting little fact. He wanted us to go become missionaries to the country of Yemen in the Middle East. That was where he wanted us to go. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. And there are not very many people who can say this, but I went for a 3-week missions trip to Yemen back in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people who can say that. And it was honestly some of the 3 best weeks. I absolutely loved I will always treasure my time there. It was one of the best 3 weeks of my marriage. We actually had we got along really well during that time. Because we did not always get along as well.
I was going to ask you, was there, since you guys married so young and basically you were so new with life experiences, was the marriage always pretty rocky because you guys just didn't know what, everything that was new, you had nothing to base your experience on.
Right.
So everything that happened was brand new, and that must have been very tiring.
It was difficult at times. Now, he was 10 years older than I am, so he had a lot more life experience. But we were on basically the same maturity level in many ways. And then I had a lot of things, that misconceptions about what marriage should be and how I should be, based on a lot of different things, either growing up in the church, seeing my parents. I mean, I had so my expectations of marriage were that, he's in charge and I need to just do whatever he says, let him kind of control me, and that is essentially what I did. But then as I went on in the marriage and I became a little more independent, that's when there began to be more friction. So probably for the first few years, really things weren't that bad, because what's weird is it was more of a parent-child relationship, which sounds kind of strange, but I know some relationships are like that, and that's really kind of what it was. Like, he's in charge, I'm like the one who I'm going to do whatever he says, and I'm not going to question it. But then, 4 or 5 years into the marriage, as I was then older, because now I was in my mid-20s and I really was finding who I was, then I was starting to stand up for myself, and that was when there began to be more friction, I would say.
Yeah, he felt threatened by you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure. Well, after you had your daughter, so now here you are in Florida. Now, did you divorce in Florida, then move back home?
Okay, that's a good question. So actually, we left Florida. I was still married, and we hadn't had any children yet. We hadn't had my daughter yet. We moved to Texas because he wanted to try. He had gone to graduate school, hadn't worked out, so he was ready. He was going to go to seminary. That was so then that's basically Christian graduate school. So he was going to try that, and so we moved to Texas. We moved to Dallas, Fort Worth, Dallas area, and so I was teaching at that point. I was teaching full time. I actually got the job through the phone. I mean, really, literally, like, they offered me the job and everything over the phone. And so I had a job teaching music full time. And he was going to seminary. He didn't like it, so he dropped out. So that was the second time he dropped out. And he went back to working his construction stuff, and then he just kind of quit working, and things. This is when things did begin to get a little bit more difficult. I continued to. I had to be the one that was the full-time person, first full-time worker in the family, and he was part-time, and he was beginning to have. We didn't really realize it, but he was beginning to suffer from depression, and so that was beginning to play a part here. I was able to continue being a music teacher, and then I got pregnant, which was a surprise because we didn't really figure that we were able to have kids. And then along came my daughter, and it was it honestly was a very positive experience. I mean, bringing her into the world, and I really believed, okay, now our marriage is going to be really, really great because we have a daughter, and everything's going to be great. Because I think that sometimes you have that thought of, okay, you bring a child in the mix, and then everything's wonderful. Sure. And that isn't quite what happened. That actually pushed his mental illness and depression even further, and it was very difficult. I did end up having to divorce him while we were in Texas, because it just was not. His depression had gotten to he wouldn't treat his depression. He was offered every opportunity to do so, and so finally we just had no choice. It just, okay, I have to leave him, and for my sake and for my daughter's sake, and that's what happened. And it all ended up being the right thing to do at that time. I'm not saying it's always the right thing for everybody to do, but in my case, we'd done everything we could. We really did try to make it work, and we did, examined all the avenues, went to counseling, everything, and it doesn't work though when just one person wants to do the work.
No,
I think that's the thing. If you can get both people at least doing something, you have a chance. And I think that's why my parents were able to come back together, because both of them were able to do something to, okay, we're gonna make this work, and they were at least both trying to make it work. It doesn't work when you have just me over here trying to make it work, and he's not. And
Um, well, that and I'm sure there were some sounds like there was some rather maybe really close to the fringe, psychological abuse as well. When
yes,
you mentioned earlier about him making fun of your voice or putting it down, you
yeah,
could see that wasn't positive at all.
right.
Um, but now you're divorced.
Hmm.
You have your daughter.
Hmm.
And do you enjoy teaching music? I mean, does that, I mean, you said that wasn't what you
Right,
saw yourself
right,
doing, but
right.
once you started doing it, did you enjoy it?
I really did enjoy my time teaching music. Yes. In fact, my favorite part of teaching music was actually putting on the programs. That was my favorite part. That was what I loved. Um, I loved getting to put together,
The recitals?
get the kids out there acting and singing and putting on all these shows. That's what I loved. Um, what was difficult for me was really being in the classroom. Classroom management was a struggle for me. I did get better because I really worked on that. I think most teachers will say that actually classroom management can be a struggle, just trying to figure that out because things are always changing and it's it would always boggle my mind. It's like these kids are acting like this. Like I never would have thought of acting like this. Why are these, you know, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds acting like this? Why won't they do what I've asked them to do? to do? It can be really frustrating.
Sure.
Um, but I really did enjoy my time doing that. And then an opportunity came up for my daughter and me to move back to Washington State. My parents had moved out in the country, and that's where I am now. And my dad has some health concerns, and my mom said, "Well, why don't you guys move back? And you can help me take care of your dad, and then I can help you financially." And because I've been on my own since the divorce, and we honestly been doing fine. I mean, I had a house, and I had a house that I owned in Texas, and so it wasn't like I was not doing things. I mean, my daughter and I had gotten along quite well, but this opportunity to come back home seemed really nice. And since it was all set up, I mean, my parents have 5 acres out here. um, we live we live in a place called Yelm, which is in between Tacoma, which is where I grew up, and where I was born, and then Olympia, which is the capital city of Washington. And so we're still relatively close to the city. I mean, you're 40-45 minute drive to the city, but we're outside the city limits, and we have, it's like we've got 2 goats, and we have all these cats, and we have a dog, and we have so it's a really nice setup out here.
Sure.
And so when I moved out here, I actually couldn't jump right into teaching music because it's not easy. Not every state likes to make the adjustments. You might be certified to teach in one state, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're certified to teach in another state.
Right.
And so it took a while. So I actually, at one point, and this is another interesting little thing, but at one point I was substitute teaching in 11 different districts in the area,
That's
which means
crazy.
I was driving all over the place and it was just because I didn't know what to do. It's like it took forever, it seemed like, to even get accepted in these districts. And then I began to back off where it was like, okay, I don't want to drive that far. I don't want to drive that far. And I mean, sometimes I was driving 2 hours one way, and that was not fun. But I
Mm.
just was doing my best to get myself established and figure out where I wanted to be. And so I did this for a number of years. I did this actually for most of the time that my daughter was going to school, and um, but really, what happened? You might ask me about this, but I'll just jump in. Um, as I was substitute teaching, I had some downtime, and writing had always been something that I had loved. I had always been a writer. It's always been a strength of mine. And I began to notice that people were doing blogs online, and they were writing, and they were doing all this. And I remember I started following all these blogs, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I remember saying to myself one day, I could do this. All these people are doing this. Why don't I jump in and do a blog?
Yeah.
I've got all this downtime because I'm substitute teaching, which means I don't have to plan lessons. I just jump in and I can do all these things. So let's just see what happens. And I jumped in. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never set up a website before, didn't know a thing. And I just jumped in and started doing a blog. And
How
that
soon was how soon was it? How soon was it when you started writing? Did you feel the top pop off? Like yes.
oh yeah, it wasn't very long. It was like once I got into it, then it was just like I wanted to do more and more and more, and I was networking with other bloggers and trying to figure out how to do this better and that better, and just jumping in. Yeah, and before long, I was doing reviews. I was reading books, writing book reviews. I was writing product reviews. I was working with companies, and I was doing a whole lot of. It was really great, and I loved it. And that was how my blog, and I still do have a blog. I don't add as much to it as I once did, but I still do have a blog. And but that was what I was doing. Well, and I just it was probably really just a couple months, and then I was just hooked. It was like, this is what I want to do. And as time went on, I I used to always think, well, I'm substitute teaching until I can get back into the classroom. And as time went on, it was like, man, I'll just keep substitute teaching, and I'm going to figure out how to make my blog financially successful for me and see what I can do to make some money writing. Since I'm already doing this, let's see what I can do. And I was able to make not a lot of money, but I was able to make a little bit of money writing my blog. And I just said, I'm not going to go back to the classroom. I don't want to go back to the classroom. I will remain as a substitute teacher. I enjoy substitute teaching because I'm able to decide my own schedule and not have to be um, teaching, coming up with lesson plans and dealing with certain other things. And really, I made a lot of connections with the students. It was kind of fun. I began to limit myself mostly just to the district that I was in, and that's where I was going to sub. And so I made a lot of connections with the students, and I would get to watch them and be like, oh, I had you last year in this school, so now I've got you this year in this school. And so that was really fun for me.
Yeah, it seemed to me like when you sold your house in Texas, to move back, I mean, you probably had a little bit of a nest egg, so you didn't necessarily were forced to do anything you didn't want to do. Plus, you're living at your parents' house,
Yeah.
which really helped out a lot too. So you were able to basically lay there, and basically make your own choices. You weren't forced to
Right.
do anything, and that's a big comfort,
Yeah.
that allowed you to, allowed you to, you know, basically allow you to learn how to express yourself, not only through music and teaching, but now you through your writing.
Right.
When I asked you about the top, when the top came off, because I'm sure you yourself probably were struggling with a lot of issues at the time. And I know that writing is, I tell people all the time, it's like if you fill it up with stuff inside, depression or whatever, start writing, start slamming the keyboard. I mean, it really does help. And it sounds like to me when you first started writing, that's probably what you wrote about. Probably, I
Yeah.
bet you weren't anything else. You probably wrote about what was happening to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. That was where it started. It started as more of just expressing all those ideas, those emotions, those thoughts, and so because that's what I knew, that's what I was going through. And as time went on, I moved more away from that. It became, my focus changed. My focus continues to change. It's like I am one who really likes having a lot of variety in my life. It's like because what I found would happen even with my blog, it's been through several different changes because when I was working with these companies and I was reviewing products and I was reviewing books and I was doing all this, I loved it. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of doing that.
Yeah,
I'm tired of writing product reviews. I'm tired of writing book reviews. What can I do next? And then that's actually when I started writing movie reviews, and I did that for movie and TV show reviews, and I did a lot for Hallmark. I was able to make a lot of connections that way, and so that's how that just again that just came about because I wanted to change, and I thought, hey, I've got this blog established. Why don't I review something that I'm really interested in, and I really would like to get the word out there. In fact, I can remember one time someone saying, well, why don't you write a review about the new Star Wars movie that's out? And I'm like, you know what? They don't need my help. There are loads of reviewers out
Ruth,
there. It's got a whole marketing team behind it. But
Ruth,
this
you're
little
not.
Hallmark movie over here, there's not a lot of information out there. So I'm going to spend my time promoting them because they can actually benefit from what I'm doing.
Ruth, you know what? You have done that. Yeah, you and I knew this. We are the birds of the same feather. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Because when I started writing my blog, I started writing on a website called Moblog, and I met a few people there, and it was a lot of fun. But then the guy who had the site, he just closed it down with no warning.
No.
Then MySpace came by, and then did MySpace for a little bit. Actually, that's where I started my interview series way back when. I started
Okay.
8 questions way back then, and then I went to then Facebook blogging platform was shit. Sorry about that, but
Yeah.
yes, you're allowed to say bad words here on this show.
Okay.
So so they were basically, that's what it really was. It was not very good. So and then I was just writing to write. I was doing interviews and stuff like that. And then Facebook happened. I didn't like Facebook, and then I started doing then I started writing on my on work Google.
Mhm.
And then I was just writing this and that. I was just writing just to hear myself basically speak. Just going back to some of it, I was just like, I wasn't writing to any one person. I was just writing. And then, of course, I moved of course, my wife got sick. And so then I began to have some serious writing. And yeah, I got to write through her illness for 2.5 years. I got to write about that and express it. And after she passed, 2013, I was still writing myself. And then I realized that, I don't know how long people would want to read about me basically saying this over and over and over, that like, I'm done. My heart is just so shattered. And after a while, people, probably don't want to read that.
Mhm.
So that's when I started doing the movie reviews as well.
Okay.
That's exactly, mine was born out of the same thing, from a heartache. And so I decided to write movie reviews as well. And I had the same idea you did. I was like, I'm not going to write about the blockbusters because everybody does it, right?
Exactly.
But nobody writes about the small movies.
Right.
So to me, it's like my very first review was a friend of mine. She was in the movie,
Mhm.
and introduced me to the director of the movie. And so I went and bought the movie, and I went and I watched it, and I reviewed it the first time. And I said, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like doing this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm with you. I'm very much, I remember the first time that I put out my first Hallmark review.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the people have fun with me, going like, what are you watching? Because up to that time I've been watching different things. I've been watching horror and action and crime dramas, but
Yeah.
I just couldn't do that all the time. I needed a gentle. I absolutely needed it. I just so when you started reviewing the movies, like the Hallmark movies, how did it make you feel when the first time you saw your first review out? I mean,
what was really neat about that is that they were received so very well. I mean, I couldn't believe that the actors that were in the movies were actually reading my reviews and commenting back on them. I was just like blown away, thinking like, whoa, like I said all these nice things about them, which for me, and that's because that was another thing when I started these reviews. I would go and read some reviews of some of the movies that I was reviewing. And I thought, and I would read it and I think, good grief, did this person see the same movie that I did? they were like saying all these horrible things about the movie. And I'm like, what? Why are people putting that out there? Why are they saying this? And I began to realize that so many of the movie reviews that are out there are super negative.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think I think sometimes reviewers believe that they have to put out the negative stuff because, oh, well, that's going to get the interest. Nobody's going to read the positive reviews. And I was like, and I remember, hearing something from one of the people that I've interviewed over the years, and they said that, it's really easy. You can sit back and you can look at a movie and you can tear it all apart and you can say all the things that they should have done differently, and you didn't like this part and you didn't like that part. But the fact of the matter is, no one puts a movie out there expecting it to be bad. No one involved in a movie, when they put that movie out there, they're not like, well, I'm going to put this out here because I want it to be the worst movie that was ever made. Nobody does that.
I think that my chat people will probably definitely shake their heads with me. That's not necessarily true, Ruth.
Okay.
In fact, let me introduce you to somebody. I want you to meet somebody, because then we'll talk about this.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first for me, but that's an interesting point. But so meet our good friend Brett Kelly. This is Brett.
Okay.
Okay. Now you're wondering, why is this grown man showing me a toy shark?
Okay.
Well, the reason why is because Brett Kelly is a director based up in Canada, and Ruth, he makes his movies for a couple $100. In fact, for this movie he made called Wheezy Shark, he spent $216 making it.
Okay.
Now, honestly, do you really not think that when he put that out there that he knew that was going to be just a load of cat poo? Of course he did.
Yeah.
There are directors out there that do that slop. Yeah. They will go ahead and, it's actually a question that I've asked many directors. The question is, okay, especially for low budget movies. Okay. And that is, you got $5,000 in your filming budget. You got $5,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, does it behoove you as a director? Does it behoove you to take that $5,000 and film your film, or to wait and maybe try to raise more money, and in 3 more months, now you have $10,000, then go shoot your movie? Because there is a difference. There's
mm-hmm.
And this is, sometimes filmmakers can make a better movie than they want to, or can't, or try to. Some people just want the legacy. They want to go out there and drop a movie down as fast as they can get them out. And so yeah, there are some out there. They really do believe that they realize that they're not putting out the best effort they got. And it's sort of discouraging watching their product, because it's like, you look at it and you're like, why? Because obviously they have enough talent to actually make a movie, which is a very hard thing to do. But why sell yourself short by putting out slop? Yeah. Why not just wait, get a little budget, get a little bit of better script, and they'll go out there and then make a good movie, so people don't sit there and hammer you. Like Brett Kelly is I like the guy. I mean, I've gone to, do I like his movies? No, but I like him. He seems like a nice guy. Yeah. But his movies frustrate me when I review them, because I'm sitting there going like, here I am, I'm going to review Brett's movie. It's like, I don't even do it anymore. I can't. There's no point. There's no point to it. What's the point? To sit there and say it's not a very good movie? That's obvious. So why waste my time? Why waste your time as a reader reading that?
Right. That's true.
So, but obviously, though, what was the first bad movie that you actually watched? I mean, that you watched and go like, oh, no.
There are movies that I did not finish. I don't remember. I don't remember the name of the movie, but I went to a film festival because I have gotten to go to a film festival a couple times. And there was a movie that actually my daughter and I watched it together, watched part of it, but we could not finish it because it was nothing but basically these three teenage boys like getting hacked up or hacking people. I can't remember. It was like nothing but blood and gore, and
Right.
everybody's raving about it. And we were just like, this is not for us, and we're gonna leave and go go do something else because we've
Right.
seen it. And it's not that we were so opposed to. I mean, we had seen movies, some movies that were out there that had really good concepts and maybe always weren't executed the best, but you could see where they were headed and you could see it had potential. And this one, I just felt like there was like, okay, they built this up to be such a big movie in the film festival, and everybody's like talking about how great it is. And it was like, okay, this is not going to work because all they're doing for like the whole movie is just hacking people up. And I don't, and I don't watch a lot of horror films. That is true. Although I have watched some very, I've watched some movies that are out there that have some violence and some gore in them that actually are really good. But that would probably be the first. And I didn't write about it. I didn't say anything about it. Because and you know, and I really do appreciate what you said, because I probably should have said most filmmakers, not instead of all. I mean, I can think of most filmmakers maybe that I know of and that I've been in contact with, even independent filmmakers. I
Yeah.
have I have watched their movies because I have seen some. I mean, I've seen some that are way out there. I've seen some that people would say, "You watched that movie? What you watched?" Like I can remember there being a movie, probably one that was really out there and really pushed me was called, I think it's called Candyland. Yeah, it is. And it was made up in Canada.
That was the
And
Dee Snyder, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think that was the one with Dee Snyder was in it.
I am not 100%
Yeah,
sure that this,
I believe that is.
but it was made up in Canada, and it came out a couple of years ago. And actually, I've interviewed several of the actors that have been a part of it, and they're always like, "What? You watched that movie?" And they can't believe it because they know how Hallmark I am, and they're like, "You watched that movie?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, it was really a stretch, but I came away from it, even though there were a lot of elements in it that were distressing and difficult to watch, and really pushed me beyond what I normally would have watched, because I went in with an open mind, and I came seeing what I could learn and what I could really get from it. It really became a positive experience, and I gave it really a very good review because I could see what the filmmaker was trying to do with it.
Do you
And
think writing like things that you don't like, or movies you don't like, or products you don't like, do you think writing about them makes you a better writer because you're basically writing something that you really don't like? So now you got to really, as a
right,
creative, you really got to be, you got to put the best spin on it. And do you think
yeah,
it made you a better writer?
yes, I do actually, because what I always made it a point of, even if I didn't like a movie or something like that. And I learned this even with actors that I would interview. Sometimes their big movie was one that I didn't like. And so what I would do is I would really have to go in deep and saying, okay, I'm going to interview this person, and I know that I didn't like this movie, and maybe I didn't even like their character, or maybe I didn't like a lot of elements about the movie, but because I'm interviewing them and that was such an important thing to them, I'm going to put myself in their shoes, and I'm going to come at it from their perspective and see what I can say. How can I say it in such a way? Because I certainly don't want to say, I don't want it to be, it's not going to make a very good interview, I don't think, if I say, well, I really hated your film when you did this and such. I don't think
Preach.
that would be a really good way to have an interview. That's going to completely shut the person down. Now,
Yes, yes,
they
it
may
does.
come back and say, you ask them about that movie and say, well, I watched that movie and I watched your character. They may come back and say, that wasn't my favorite movie, but I liked this. That's
Right.
different. If it
You
comes,
could, you could,
but I'm not going to tear them down.
no, you could be positive, you could be neutral, but you never can
Right.
be negative.
Right. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean,
But
I mean, and that's fine because you're still being honest. You can still stay
exactly.
neutral. Because I had an experience with that with a
Mm-hmm.
director. I had asked him for an interview, and then I reviewed his movie
Mm-hmm.
before the interview, and the movie, it could have been better. It could have been better, and then I went back to the interview, and he basically said I can't do the interview because he basically harshed my movie, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
the studio that's putting it out would really appreciate that at the
Right.
time. And I said
Exactly.
I understand that, sure, I get that. Um, and luckily, me and Michael Cassie have remained close friends. And I did interview him, and he's a wonderful gentleman, and he is a kick-ass director.
That's good.
But that was my first time with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was just being honest in my review. It wasn't.
Right.
And I told him this. What would you rather had me done? Would you rather me had done interviewed you and blow smoke up you,
Right.
and then come back and watch your movie and then give my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you have been more angry to see that after the interview or before the interview? He says, yeah, you have a good point.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, it's like just to be honest in your writing. When you're telling, because basically all we're doing, we're just giving our opinion.
Yeah.
I never
Exactly.
truly understood how people give so much importance
Mm-hmm.
to an opinion. It's like,
Right.
we like this. This is why we like it. This is why we
Yeah.
think you should like it. And my biggest thing when I do a film review is the only question I ask myself whenever I do a film review is, would I buy the movie? Because I'm basically asking you to buy it with my review. That's what I'm basically doing. It's like, you should go out there and invest your money into buying this because this is why.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if I can't, in all honesty, buy the movie, and
Right.
see, this is, I think, a lot of critics, they really misfire because a lot of times they get their movies for free. So
Mm-hmm.
then they're sitting there and they're writing the positive things. They're
Mm-hmm.
writing all positive because why not? Because they got it for free.
Yeah.
It's like they can sit there and yeah, go out there and get it, and it's not a
Yeah.
good movie, but they're
Right.
writing it basically for the company, and
Mm-hmm.
I just find that very disingenuous.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. I would agree with you completely. Yeah, I have sometimes when I've done a movie review that I didn't really like, I have made it clear that, this is not a movie that necessarily I would watch, but if you are a fan of thus and such and thus and such and thus and such, you're probably going to like it. I have done that before as well, where I still am able to give it the positives, but I make it clear, this wasn't necessarily for me, and actually people have really appreciated that. I have steered people towards movies that I would recommend, that okay, you're a Hallmark person, so you're probably going to like this. This probably isn't for, if you really like Hallmark movies, you might want to avoid this movie just because you're probably not going to have a good experience. And I've and I have told people that way. I've been careful in how I've said it, but people have appreciated. I'll say, here's what you might find objectionable in the movie. I've told them sometimes, offline, if they've asked my opinion, I'll say, yeah, it does have this in it, it does have this in it, and so I've been careful to always keep my viewership in mind, so that when I recommend something, I give them the facts so that they have those facts and they can make up their own mind whether they want to buy the movie or not.
Your friend Jeanette saying that she's still in the fight at 2 a.m. in the UK. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Jeanette. This is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
If you do got to go to bed though, this will be I'll be posting this up right after the interview is over with, and you can come back and watch the replay for sure. Obviously. Thank you so much for supporting Ruth. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Um, so okay, so yeah, you're right about that. When it, writing for writing for the Hallmark crowd. I mean,
Hmm.
I think most of my friends, because they're mostly independent film, horror, and
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
I think Katie's probably the only one I know that probably I would call a Hallmark person.
Mm.
I know she loves Disney. Um,
Yeah.
oh, hi, Anne's here too. Anne Ciavola. Hi, Jeanette.
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
Ruth. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Ann. Yep. I know Ann too.
Oh, welcome aboard, Anne. I say Katie's probably the only person in here that is, I would call, a Hallmark level fan. I know she loves Disney, which is not that far off. Some of
Hmm.
the Disney stuff is pretty close. Um,
Yeah.
but I I I would tell people all the time that I think people really underestimate the fan base for Hallmark movies. They are very fierce. I mean, they are very passionate, aren't they not?
Oh, they are. Oh my goodness, they are. Yeah, they're a whole army, and and I get it. I because there's I think that one of the reasons that I've been so passionate about Hallmark movies and that fan base is, again, there's not a lot of things out there where you can turn something on and you don't have to worry about violence and language and bedroom scenes and all. You don't have to worry about those kinds of things, and that's always what I've appreciated, especially when my daughter was younger. I was so grateful, and also with my parents, because I will usually watch these movies with my parents, and I love the fact that I don't have to sit there and wonder, okay, is there going to be a bad word? Is there going to be a bedroom scene? Is there going to be something that they really don't like? And because it's like the old Hollywood movies. That's always something I've appreciated about the Hallmark genre.
Um, you mentioned earlier about how some of the actors and producers or whatnot commented on your reviews.
Hmm.
So, what was your first contact with? I mean, like real contact with a personality or an executive from Hallmark. When did they
Oh,
reach out to you and say,
okay.
"Hey"?
Yeah. Well, um, I would say my first one. That's a good question. I'm just trying to make sure that that I'm going back and trying to make sure that I picked the right for that. Who was the actual first one? I would say. Oh yeah, of course. The first time that really happened would have been going back to Signed, Sealed, Delivered. I was a part of the original people that watched Signed, Sealed, Delivered. We were like the original fans of that particular series. It was a TV series, and then they changed it into a movie series.
Yeah,
And that was when I first started live tweeting, which I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And so my first real contact, I was so excited. This was, it's in fact, I believe I'll be meeting this person in person in December, which is kind of cool because we've never actually met. I've talked with him, but Eric Mabius was actually the first contact that I had where I did like this live tweeting and said how much I enjoyed him, and I got this tweet back and I was like, whoa, the actor I'm watching on TV. And I told everybody in the household, and I was like, because I never knew that anything like that could happen. And so that is really what began my whole live tweeting thing, which led to the reviews. So the first reviews that I would have done would have been for the show. Actually, the first one. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to remember if it was either Good Witch or Cedar Cove. I'm gonna say I think I think it was Good Witch because yeah, because I did a review of um, yeah, I did a review of like one of like a Hallmark movie, and as a result, one of the executives, she reached out and said, "Well, would you be willing to review? We're doing a movie of Good Witch, it's the first in what's going to be the series, the TV series Good Witch." and would you be willing to review it? And she sent me a screener, and I was able to review it, and that began this whole thing of beginning to review the movies and TV shows, and have interactions with various actors, and I have a lot of friends amongst that are in Hallmark movies, and then it's always fun to watch them pop up in other shows. That's always a fun thing.
I always look for Nelson Wong.
Oh my goodness, isn't he the greatest? Yeah, I love him.
Every movie, I always looking for him. You know, I always do. Everyone is like, yeah, okay, there he is. There's our boy.
Yeah.
I gotta say this. Signed, Sealed, Delivered was my first review was A Christmas Melody with Brendan Elliott, Mariah Carey, and Lacey Chabert.
Yeah.
But my favorite is also Signed, Sealed, and Delivered.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that show so much. That's I was so bummed when they went to series, and then they said we're going to take it off, and then we're going to do movies. And I was so disappointed.
I know.
And then but the movies have just been amazing.
Oh, they have been. They have been incredible. Yeah. And of course, you mentioned Brendan Elliott, and and he was the first guy I ever interviewed, first actor I ever interviewed. So that's always
that guy. So
he holds a very special place in my heart as well.
I made me laugh about the Postables, because see, when I watched it, because like I said, because we're all horror based here, but well, there's an actor on Signed, Sealed, Delivered that's also a screen queen, and that was Crystal Lowell.
Oh yes,
Crystal Lowell has done several horror movies.
Yes.
And it made me laugh because it made me laugh when I saw her name on there, because I'm like, okay, so she's a screen queen, and then they brought her out there and they were trying to dress her down. And of all the things I've seen that are Hallmark, there's nothing more laughable than to try to dress down Crystal Lowell. Because if you've seen the lady, that's just impossible, because she's just stone cold beautiful. You can't put glasses on her, put frumpy clothes on her, but she's way too beautiful. You're not going to hide that.
She is gorgeous. I mean, I will never forget. She was one of my early interviews, and we did this I don't remember what it wasn't Zoom, because that was before Zoom really took over, but I think we did Skype or something like that. And I remember when she came on the video, I was like, oh my goodness, this woman is gorgeous. I remember, like, I had to tell her, you are just so gorgeous. I mean, it's like, and that's not like my normal thing that I would do, but when you see her, she is just like drop dead gorgeous.
She is. And that's interesting. I mean, when I saw the Postables, when I saw Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm like, that is so cool. Look at them trying.
I know.
So this is Brendan Elliott was your first interview then. So that was your first real. I mean, you're now you're moving up. Now you're getting to that point where now you're starting to review these things, and you start to become a rather important voice, because you are one of the few people. In fact, you still are. Actually, you and I both are, and that actually review Hallmark movies. Do you ever look at the International Movie Database?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Notice how there's no one ever reviews them. No one ever. But if you look for me, you'll see me. I'm there.
Yep, I'm there too. Yep.
But nobody reviews them.
Yeah.
Nobody review. I'm stunned by that, because I'm like, no one's ever, like, what? No fans have ever tried it, or nobody.
I know.
So now here you are. Now you made your first contact. When you first met Brennan, and be honest with us, and I'll know if you are. Did you have a little fangirl moment?
Oh, so that interview, that is one of my favorite stories. Because when we did our first interview,
You
Oh,
already told me.
yeah. That first interview, and I know I've told the story before, but that first interview was really a comedy of errors. I mean, the man was so patient because it was literally 40 minutes later. It was like we're supposed to have the interview, and through a series of events, it was 40 minutes later, and I was no longer at home. I had to go to the gas station, our local gas station, because it was the only place I could get service. And so I was in my car at the gas station, and that's where the first interview happened, which
That's
is
so
just
awesome.
crazy.
That's
And
awesome
and
right
I mean,
there.
all my notes were gone. I mean, I couldn't hard. It was dark. I could hardly read my notes. But oh, I did. Yeah, I was when I found out I was going to interview him, and his manager was like, "Oh yeah, we'll do it tomorrow at this such time." And I was like, "Less than 24 hours? Like, what am I gonna do? How do I do this?" And for the longest time, I actually had the voicemail that he left me. I kept it and I would listen to it because I'm like, this really happened. He called me and left a message. It was so yeah, definitely. I definitely did because it was. But from the moment, but once we started the interview, that was all gone. I will
Yeah.
say. I mean, once the interview actually started, and actually the fact that it was such a comedy of errors, I no longer had time to focus on the fact that I'm interviewing Brendan Elliott. It was like I'm doing this interview, and we're doing it, and we're making, and it was like I had so many other things to focus on. I was no longer nervous or fangirling.
It's interesting. I mean, the first time you actually meet somebody like that, and
Yeah.
and it's someone who I was pretty immune to it, but I remember I fanboy too the first time I met some of the singers that I really liked. You
Yeah.
know, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm meeting John Doe from X, and I'm just like, I'm having a fanboy moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Oh shoot, hold on, I froze. Hold on one second. Let me back out and come back in so I don't lose the chat. Stay
Okay.
right where you're at. This
Okay.
happened live TV, so to speak.
That's right.
Um,
All right.
okay. So
Okay.
yeah, so tell us about the first time you and Paul Greene met, because this has got to be a good story.
Well, the first interview we had was he only gave me 15 minutes, so he said, and he actually gave me 40 minutes. It was so funny. I mean, we were just laughing about that the other day because so that was something, but we had an instant connection. The first interview that we had an instant connection because of music and because we both are divorced, and we're born the same year, the same month. We're like I think it's if I remember right, I think it's 11 days apart. If I remember I think that's right. I sometimes get that wrong, but I think that's right. And our kids are the same age, we're in the same year. I mean, we have all these connections. I was like, we're having this conversation. I'm like, how is it possible that there's all these connections happening right here? But the first time I met him in person was actually one of the When Calls the Hardies conventions, and I remember that he was the one I was really excited about meeting because we had several interviews at this point. He knew who I was because other fans had met him and said, well, I'm a friend of Ruth. Oh, tell Ruth hi. And I was just like, whoa, he knows who I am. And so at that point, they used to do it where you were in a room and you're in line and you're waiting. So, I could see him. I mean, here I am standing in line, and I see that he'll be the last person that I'll get to meet in the room. And I remember it was just so hard. I mean, I just had to keep telling myself, okay, take a deep breath, because I was so excited. I mean, I was so excited. That was my excitement level, trying to keep that excitement level down. So I was like, this guy, we have made all these connections, and I'm finally going to meet him in person. And there was just that instant connection when we did meet. And what was cool was he was as excited to meet me as I was to meet him. So that's always there's just a wonderful feeling when you have that. So yeah, we've met on several occasions, and of course now I work for him. So
Yeah. So obviously we need to talk about that because how did that? I mean, because I have a friend of mine named Wendy Shepherd.
okay, yes.
Do you know who Wendy is?
I sure do. Yep.
Yeah. So I've known Wendy I've known Wendy even before I met you.
Yeah.
I've known her for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's really how she ended up working, and she ended up working for Norman Reedus, among others.
Okay.
Yeah, she started doing all his social media and whatnot, and she just worked really hard at it, and someone noticed it, and they connected, and she's been his publicist now for many, many years.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, well,
because there's a difference between meeting somebody, writing a review, or interviewing them. There's a big difference because you're still basically on the outside. You're working, but now you actually work for him. It takes you on the other side of the mirror,
right?
And that's got to be that must have been a little bit, that must have been a little bit nerve-wracking because he approached you, right?
Yeah. Yes. Right. So, I mean, there's a long story, and I don't want to. I mean, it's like I don't want to. I tend to be really detailed anyway. I do have that tendency.
That's okay.
But I'll try to shorten it a little bit, just try to stick to more of the facts here. But the way it came about is that Paul and his fiance, they do an online coaching course, lifestyle coaching course. And I was with them. I took their very first coaching course. They offered it a couple times back, and it would have been 2019. And so I signed up for it, and I got into it, not really knowing what was expected. I picked up a few things here and there. A lot of what Paul said, I decided I didn't agree with. And she knows this is all that I'm saying is nothing that I haven't said elsewhere. In fact, I will tell people how I basically used to try to prove him wrong because he has a lot of information about health, and it's a lot of good information, but I didn't like it. And so I just and you know how it is. If you want to, you can find something out there for whatever it is that you want to believe. You can do a search, and there's stuff out there. And so I was very resistant. And I think a lot of it, because another little side note I forgot to say, Paul Greene has the auspicious honor, not really auspicious, but he has the same name as my ex-husband. I was married to a Paul. So when we first connected, my only issue with Paul Greene was that, why do you have to, to myself, it was like, why do you have to have the same name as my ex-husband? Why? It's like, and it was really tough. For those first couple of years, I had to go around and say Paul Greene, because if I said Paul, I immediately thought of my ex-husband, because I still had a lot of unresolved issues with him.
Sure.
Of course. And so there was also that. There was that, and there was also the thing of men have told me all their life. I've let men control me, and it's like, I don't care what Paul says. I'm going to smile and nod and just go about, take what I like. I liked a lot of. There were some things he said that I liked. There were some things that his fiance were saying that I really liked, and so I took those. And I just was more of a spectator. I was like, I'm not ready to dive in and really believe everything that they're saying. I'm just,
Sure.
It's like I know better. And then I retook the course, and it was very much the same way. However, then we fast forward to the pandemic, and they offered their coaching course again. this time I decided, you know what? I'm ready to change. I'm ready to make some really positive changes. The pandemic, I think, caused a lot of us to re-examine our lives and our priorities and look at things a little bit differently. You're in quarantine for all that time and you can't really go anywhere. And you do look at things a little differently. And what happened was I signed up for the course, and then out of the blue, my mom signs up for the course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so now, and I actually tried to talk her out of it. I was like, Mom, I don't know if you want to take this. I've been through it a couple times and there were some things I didn't like, but I'm actually going to go and really play full out and do everything that they're saying because I really want to see, I want to change in my life. I really was at that point where I was ready to change. I wasn't resistant. And she's like, nope, I want to do it. And so I had to really push to keep up with her because she's like doing everything. I'm like, you're doing that already, Mom? I was going to do that, but I'm not at that point. So it's actually really good for me because she pushed me to really get in and do the work. And so it was all really good. It ended up being really good.
Now, at that time that you did the course, did you know that he had been married and divorced once already?
Yes, I did know that. Yes, I did. Yeah. And so anyway, with that particular time, I really got in and did the work. And I began to notice, because about that time, Paul's doing all these live stream concerts. I'm jumping in and trying to help them. And I'm offering to do a lot of these things just because I tend to just give of myself and do a lot of things because that's just kind of how I'm wired. Oh. And I had in my mind as we're going through the course, I was like, and I didn't really tell anyone other than my mom and maybe a couple of friends. I said, if I had to say what I really would like to have happen, because at this point I wasn't able to substitute teach because the schools were all shut down. I have my last day in a classroom was the day that everything shut down for the pandemic. I was in a high school and they made the announcement, we're shutting everything down. And I was just like, of all days to be here as a substitute, I'm here on the day that they shut everything down. So it was crazy. But I kept thinking, I didn't understand what was meant by this, but I thought, if I could choose any job, I want to work for Paul. I don't know how that would happen, but they need help. I see that they need help and I'm trying to do all I can to help them, but I actually want to work for them. And I didn't tell them that.
Sure.
I just kept it to myself. And I will never forget, I'm sitting there, my mom, like just one afternoon or evening, my mom was sitting next to me and Paul sends me this message. How would you like to work for me? And I sat there and I was like, Mom, I can't believe this. This message, and I mean, she knew something was up. And I'm like, I couldn't even say anything because I was like, how is this even possible? This is what I wanted to have happen. I visualized it happening. And now here was this message sitting there like, I was like, what? Yeah, like, and I'm thinking, how do I respond to this? Well, I've been wanting to work for you for a while. I was like, what do I say? And trying to calm down and calmly come up with a response because I'm really freaking out. I will admit I was.
Sure.
And so as a result, and I was expecting, I think we both were expecting, let's look at it. We'll figure out how this is going to work out. It wasn't an immediate thing. It was me saying, yes, I'd be interested when it's the right time. Because it wasn't like he was offering me a job. I don't remember all the wording, but he was basically saying, this is something I think we would like to be able to take you on. We'd like to be able to hire you. Not sure how that's all going to work out, that kind of thing. And then and then it wasn't that long before he brought me on. And I had no idea. Neither one of us, it was more of a trial thing to see, okay, we have no idea where this is going. We don't know what's going to happen. Neither one of us really knew what this meant necessarily. We're just trying to figure it out as we go through it. and he knew that he needed the help, and I needed a job, and that's how it all came about.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you do get. I mean, it is a job. I mean, that's first and foremost. It's a job. Even when you're, even when you're surrounded by well-known people, you still have a job to do. I
Yeah.
mean, it's cool to come up there and see all the famous people, whatnot.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in the chat, my friends, they know the stories already. Tons of people well known, but you still have a job. You just can't sit there and you can't be a fan. When you get
Right.
offered a job
Exactly.
into the industry,
Exactly.
your days of being a fan are over, and you
Right.
being a professional start.
Yeah.
So, and as far as I know, I mean, being a publicist, being an assistant, it's just like you learn as you go.
Yeah.
There's no, that's how I learned. That's how my friend Jimmy learned. That's how we learned as we go. There was no book saying how to become a publicist or how to become an executive assistant.
Oh, there's not. I know. I wish there were sometimes.
Yeah. You say, okay, so what are the details? What do you wish me to do?
Right.
And then you start slowly working at it. Then you start, okay, you want me to set up interviews. Okay, I could do that. I have a list of contacts. I could do that.
Right.
Kelly Brassington's in here and says Ruth is so
good.
professional. Yes, she is, Kelly. She definitely is.
Thanks, Kelly.
So I mean, so what exactly did he tell you? Kind of details that he wanted you to do, or did you have to basically observe and learn on your own?
It really was a partnership from the beginning. He had a list of projects, because literally, if anybody knows about Paul Greene, he doesn't just do one thing. He has, I think at some point we figured out there was like 19 projects that he is involved with in some level. And the biggest issue is that because he is a creative person, which of course that's what you want, that's what you would expect and hope from somebody who is an actor or a musician, that they're very creative. But because of that, the organization doesn't always happen. And so it's very easy to let things fall through the cracks. And one of the biggest examples I have of that is, for as long as I've known him, he has been talking about a book that he's writing. And I've heard about this book, and this book was going to be ready for Father's Day, and then it was going to be ready for Christmas, and then it was going to be ready for Father's Day next year, and then it was going to be in it. And I heard this so much, and I always included it in my interviews. And it was always like, okay, good, Paul, you're going to get on and do it. Oh yeah, he's going to do it. And it sounded like it'd be a wonderful book, 52 Ways to Be the Dad You Wish You Had. And it's wonderful, wonderful. I mean, so exciting. I knew what it was about. And I'd hear that he was, working with somebody to edit it, and he was doing different things. But because he gets so busy and has so many things going on and is so creative and jumping from one project to the next, some of those things get left behind that are very special to him. And that was a book that I knew how special it was to him. And so it was the example, the reason I'm bringing this up is probably, I'm going to say it was maybe 9 months into our working relationship, I finally said, I really want to help you bring this book. I mean, I know we're working on all these other things, and I was beginning to understand my responsibilities in a lot of different things, but I know how important this book is to you, and I want to see it happen. Can you please bring me on? I know I can help you do this, because being a writer, I know I could do this. I knew I could help him. And he so appreciated that I spurred him on. And really, for about 2 or 3 months, we had calls every single day, practically, where he would dictate. I had a transcript going, and then I would take the transcript and adjust it to get it put into the manuscript. we have sent it off to an editor for like the first little review, and we've gotten the information back, so we can go to the next step. And that is an example of, I have to, while I know my responsibilities, and he honestly does know what he's able to quite typically say, you know, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. He is able to come on and he's very kind about it. I mean, he's not
Sure.
demanding or anything. Thankfully, I'm very blessed in that way that he is not a demanding person. Because
Are you surprised? Were you surprised when you first started out? Were you surprised to see how bad it was watching people all want a piece of him at the same time? I mean, like I said, you've come over on the other side. I mean, you don't see that on, you don't, it's like watching a duck swim. You see the duck, it looks like it's gliding, but you don't see the feet underneath the water paddling like hell. Were you surprised to see how busy it really details what it goes into?
Well, he is really blessed. His fan base, and I'm not saying that there aren't ever the exceptions here and there. There's some spammers, there's some bots, there are some negative people that once in a while pop up. But his fan base, and this is not just me speaking as, well, I have to say this, and his fan base, because Paul has given so much of himself, and he continues to deliver far above what he even promises, and he is so caring and so kind and so interactive with fans. His fan base is very much a mirror of who he is. They are kind. They are very understanding. They have treated me very, very well. And so honestly, I can't really say that I see a lot of people that are wanting a piece of him or wanting that. It's busy, but it's busy in a good way, I would say. I'm not seeing a lot of the negativity. I see sometimes other fan bases that are a little rowdier than that. I've seen other Twitter feeds and sometimes Instagram feeds, and it's like, whoa, those people are like really over the top. And when Paul's fans, some of them might be over the top super fans. I will say there are many of them like that. But what they do is they're over the top in such a way with generosity. I mean, I can't get over how generous. I mean, you've mentioned a couple times here, Jeanette's up in the middle of the night. Jeanette Lemon in England, she's up in the middle of the night. She's one of the ones who never misses a concert. Like, she never misses a concert that Paul does. She gets up at all hours of the night, she is there, and she is one of the fans, as are all of his fans, who are very generous, either with their time, with their talent, with their finances. I mean, Paul does a lot of giving back to charities, and some of these fans have donated so much money to charity. But again, I think it's all in his case, it's all a reflection of who he is and what he gives. So I'm actually in a really blessed spot. I don't really feel like the fans are draining, or really are negative. I'm really blessed in that. And because actually, I will say this, that when a negative person happens to, it's really something. If a negative person pops up in Paul's feed, they're like 10 or 20 of the fans go and squash them. I mean, it's really something. They'll be like, no, you don't need to say it about Paul. Paul's not. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to. I mean, they jump to his defense, and it's really something. I mean, they're usually there before I'm there. It's like I haven't even seen the response, and they're already taking care of it, and so they've really made my job easy in that respect.
How do you like working? How do you like working and setting up interviews? I mean, I'm remiss in this. Paul Greene is a singer actor who is a mainstay of the Hallmark movies. How many does he do a year, Ruth? Does he do 3 or 4 a year?
That's a good question. He's finally doing a new Hallmark movie. He was unable to do one last year because of COVID. He was involved in one called The Heart, thankfully, but he has typically done like 2 to 3 a year is typically what he had done. Until COVID came, until When Calls the Heart did take up quite a bit of his time because he is a principal character, and or I don't know if they call him a principal character. I see him as a principal character. Maybe he's not officially considered that. I don't know what the title is, but he's at least he was one of the main characters. They usually put him in with that group. Um, but he was not always able to do Hallmark movies. Like the past couple of years, it's been a little bit difficult with COVID and with figuring it out between When Calls the Heart, his responsibilities there. But he is in a Christmas movie actually at the end of this month, on the 26th. He's got a new Christmas movie coming up.
Okay, good.
So, yeah.
Christmas movies are just wow. I mean, it's gone so far. I mean, are you shocked to see how, it went from Hallmark being, well known for their Christmas movies. I mean, they started slow, then they became more and more popular, and then became mega popular. Now, you got a new, you got Lifetime doing them now, with Active Entertainment being one of the companies.
Yeah.
You got Netflix is starting to do Christmas movies. Now there's a new channel, Great American. I don't know what the C stands for.
GAC is Great American Channel. They're calling themselves Great American Channels because they got 2 channels. Yes.
I know that the former president of Hallmark jumped ship and went over there, and now doing Christmas movies and bringing over the same stars from Hallmark over there. I don't see it being a problem. I don't see any competition. I just think of the more the better. The way I look at it, you can't get enough. I know a lot of people are trying to create friction in between the 2 channels, and some of the stars, well, so and so jumped ship. They went over to. I don't necessarily think that it's like those days are over with. The studio system is over with. Actors are free to go wherever they want to go. If the script is right or whatnot, they're going to be allowed to do it. Do you think it's a really, I mean, it's got to be helpful and beneficiary for someone like Paul to have more outlets to do creative projects, because it's not like the big studios are knocking on his door asking him to partake in movies, like, we want you to do this project with us. I just find it to be awesome that there's more out there. It's more content being creative. And he'll be able to probably end up working. I mean, he'll probably end up working for both sides of the fence, I would think. I mean, he'll be able to do, maybe a Hallmark movie. Maybe they don't have room for him, to do a movie with him right away, but he can go over to the other channel. I mean, do you see, you're going to get busier, I think, in the future. You're going to get a lot more busier. Are you ready? Are you ready for that?
I definitely am. Hey, he's getting ready to release an album very soon, and so yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been working on that, and so he's got an album coming up. He's got a movie coming up, and
tell us a little bit about the record if you can, Ruth.
Oh yeah. So his album is actually called Long Way Home, and it is actually recorded in Nashville. It's got a really cool Nashville sound to it. It's all original songs. He did co-write one. There is one song that he co-wrote with one of the fans. Interestingly enough, she's a fan, but she also was a music promoter, and has been very helpful in getting him some shows and some radio in Canada, because she lives in Canada. And so she wrote one of the songs with him. She wrote the lyrics.
Is Paul Canadian based as well?
Yes, Paul is from Canada. Yep, he sure is. And he lives in Los Angeles now, but yes, he is from Canada. And
Canada has a lot of talent.
Yeah. But the album, so the album has 11. I think that's right. I think I'm right on that. I think it's 11. Or is it 12? I can't. There might be 12 because there's one song on there twice, because he's got the like regular Nashville recording, and then he's got the acoustic recording. But it's going to be a fantastic album. Just songs that he has written that some of them have some really great stories attached to them. His current single, Waves of Time, was actually one that he wrote for When Calls the Heart, and it was featured in When Calls the Heart. And so it's kind of that's where it began, but then he extended it past that. His next single is Home, and that's one that he wrote during the pandemic when he was in Lake Arrowhead. And so he's got some really great it really has a very different sound. His first album was Freedom for Your Soul, which he released back in 2019, and that was very different. Again, it's mostly songs he'd written, but this has that Nashville sound to it, and definitely some songs on there could easily make it to country radio, maybe even Christian radio, possibly. There's different things we're looking at to see what would happen, and hopefully getting it out there, because the music, he has also been taking voice lessons, like a couple times a week, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what his schedule allows. And so he's had a really great voice teacher, and I have the same voice teacher, so yeah, I know he's a really great voice teacher. And so that has been huge. And just the fact that Paul's done 350 plus concerts over the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, he was doing these live stream concerts a couple times a week. And then sometimes he did them, the height of the pandemic, he was doing them like 5 times a week. It was crazy that he was doing so much. But because of that, it caused him to get better as a musician. So you're hearing a much better, I don't want to necessarily say better, but a much
more cleaner sound.
Yeah, cleaner, richer, and then having the Nashville influence in there, having it actually recorded in a studio. There's a huge difference in having them mix it for him and all those different things that they did. That it's just truly amazing, that the difference in sound, and I really think the fans are going to love it. I'm excited that next month he'll be going to Christmas Con, going to, of course, probably very, very soon. He's expecting a son. He and his fiance have a little one on the way. Was born in the due date is Thanksgiving, but now they're kind of thinking that maybe on the 19th, because that's full moon, so maybe that's when she'll give birth. They're going to all do it at home. They're doing a home birth, and which I had a home birth. My daughter was a home birth, so I'm all for home birth.
What is it like, for you? I mean, so what? I mean, for this tour, I mean, do you set up the interviews, right? So how does that work? Do you have a master list you work off of? Like let's say Paul has a new movie coming out, and you want to publicize it. Do you have like a master list of media contacts that you've developed? I mean, have you developed your own contact of your own media book? Do you make the call, or do they call you? And how do you decide who gets this attention, who doesn't?
Those are all really good questions. So, I mean, I do have a load of media contacts. That's true, because with interviews, I mean, I definitely have that. But because Paul has done so many interviews, and he's been in the press so much, he's usually getting contacted, and he has to be the one. I send them all his way, and then he makes a decision as to who he is able to do interviews with. And because he's so busy right now with the baby coming, he actually did back off. He's not doing quite as much press for this movie, but he did get to do it. And just because we know where his focus is right now, which is where it should be. And so I mean, that's where it should be, is, this baby's coming, and that's where his focus should be. So he didn't do it's not like he didn't do what I know some actors, they're going to go out and they're going to have whole press days, and sometimes there is a little more of that. There have been times, there are different seasons depending on things, and so it's really up to Paul though when it comes down to it. They either contact him or they contact me. If they contact him, he usually sends them my way.
Right.
And but usually I'm not having to reach out because he's so well established within the Hallmark framework. Now, as far as music, I am reaching out. When it comes to music, we have been reaching out. We do have some lists of some, because I've been learning the music side of things because that's something I didn't really know about. And so I have been reaching out and contacting and trying to get, so we're in the process of doing that.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's got to be, it's got to be really something because, like I said, you must have been really surprised to see exactly how many people want him. Have you ever dealt with any media contacts yet who, because especially, now you're, like I said, again, you're on the other side. Now you set up your publicity. Now, if people wanted to have let's just say for the giggles of it, let's just say, you set up a media day for Paul, and he's got like 10 media outlets, and each got like 20 minutes. And you're sitting there. You are now the publicist. You are now sitting there. Do you sit there and actually monitor the time? Have you found it difficult to learn how to sit there and say no to people?
I really have not had a hard time saying no to people because I really haven't, because I think Paul and I are on the same page with that. I think we've been really working hard to build the brand and to get on the same page, and we work. I think we're finding that really good working style. But as far as trying to keep it, I think the hardest thing, and I experienced this somewhat yesterday, but it's actually, once Paul gets talking, that can be a little more challenging than, okay, you've got another media time. Thankfully, we were able, it was all okay. That can be the only thing, just because he does, he's very personable, which is what you love about him. I'm going to say, I don't think I would ever plan a media day where there were 10 outlets, because I don't know how successful that would be.
Yeah. You got 20 minutes, because any media, any journalist, and I do mean journalists, I'm not talking about podcasters, I'm talking about just journalism.
Right.
They're going to try to squeeze an extra question or two. You give them 20 minutes, they're going to try to get 25, because that's the nature of the beast.
Right.
And here you are with no training. That's what I'm saying. With no training, no experience, and now you're sitting back there going like, okay, how do I come across as being firm, yet I don't want them to see me as a bitch, because I'm just a professional. Because I'm just a professional doing my job. I'm trying to, because you got 20 minutes with Paul. If you get 25, that means maybe the next one down the line might only get 15. And how fair is that to that outlet? Because they don't have to be there.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah. I would just say that I would not do something. I just wouldn't. That is, unless, the only thing would be, I suppose, that if Hallmark or the network were to push for that, that would be the only time that we'd do something like that. And I've gotten to where that's not really an issue. If that's, if I have to be the one to come along and say, okay, it's time, we need to move on. I've done that. That has been a process, because that's not an easy thing. It's not something. The worst feeling is you don't even want to. It's actually not interrupting the other journalists. It's actually interrupting Paul. That's actually what I don't like doing. I don't like doing that, but sometimes I have to,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, we're at time.
You have to protect your client from themselves.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and we see that happen sometimes, you know, and so that's probably, that's where that does require just um being professional and saying, okay, we're at time, and that's, and it's not been an issue. I don't really see it as an issue. I mean, it might be, it's more uncomfortable for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not ever been an issue. I've not gotten anything back, and I always go the extra mile to reach out and thank the journalist or the podcaster, thank them afterwards for, you know, for giving up their time, and I've made it a point to do that, because I don't know if people always do that, and I always want to come back. I keep in my mind that I am representing Paul Greene's brand, and his brand is one of kindness and generosity and gratitude, and
Right.
that needs to be the way that I represent his brand, and it needs to be that I'm not being, you know, I might have to be the one to say, okay, we're at time and we've got to move on to the next person, but I can then come back later and say, thank you for being understanding, that, you know, thank you for giving of your time, and it was great. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for being understanding. And, you know, I think that goes a long ways, because
Yeah.
you don't, because you don't usually see that in the business either. You see a lot of people who are just so crazy busy that they don't want to stop and show gratitude and come back, and it does, yeah, it takes extra time. I
Yeah.
do my best to thank the fans as much as I possibly can, and to interact with the fans, and and to because I believe that,
Because you were a fan once too.
yeah,
You know.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
So you have a you can
and
see
I
both
and I
sides of it now.
and I believe that I'm representing his brand, and that is what I keep in mind. And people are looking to me, and I sure don't want to be the one that, if they're going to have a bad experience, I don't want it to be because I was having an off day,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, if I make an error, I go back and I apologize and I take responsibility. And the fans know this. They know this, because I can't tell you how many times I've come back and said, I'm sorry that happened. I should have handled this differently, or I should have done this differently, or because I want them to realize. And you know, it's amazing. Most of the people, and I think this goes back to his fans too, but maybe it also goes back to the way that I interact with the fans. When the fans, if they do have a concern, or even on the rare occasion a complaint, lots of times, if I'm just there and I acknowledge them, and even if I can't fix it for them, and that's hard, I love to be able to fix things for them. I love when I can fix things, and it makes me feel so good. But sometimes you can't fix it. Sometimes there's something that, for whatever reason, I can't fix it, or I can't make it better, or I can't take care of the situation. But I go out of my way to make sure that they understand, I still see you. I'm sorry I couldn't fix it for you. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this won't happen in the future. And when I can do that, I think that makes a huge difference.
Did you after you started working? Did any other publicists or assistants, did they ever walk up to you or contact you and offer their, help, because they're based off their experience? Did anybody
Um,
ever come up there and say, if you have any questions, feel free to call me, or
I didn't get, well, actually, it was interesting. One of the actors that I interviewed last year, and I'd interviewed him, he's actually a Hallmark actor, Mark Declan. I don't know if you know who he is, but you might recognize him. He was in a movie last year. I think that was with Catherine Bell. I think that was the movie. I think that was who his co-star was. But he was in a movie with Danica McKellar where he played. It was about a dog, and he was like a military person, and so he's been in a few Hallmark movies. But he and I actually, when I interviewed him last year, and I had just started working for Paul, he actually talked about how he had been an assistant to, I think it was an artist or something, like back when he was first starting out, and he learned so much. And so we had that, and it was just interesting. We ended up having an interesting conversation as a result, because he got it. It's like, okay, he's an assistant, and then there are some who have had some experience in the business, and if I have a question, then I can reach out to them. And it's really cool. Paul's been really great about, there's a lot of courses that we're involved with, people in the music business that are offering courses that we're in different programs to help get the brand going better, and we meet with some professionals here and there that can offer some suggestions. So not that I've necessarily had anybody approach me out of the blue, but there are definitely those that I have come to rely on, that if I have a question, or how should I handle this, I do have some connections that I can go to them.
That's a wonderful backup. It really is. I think in all honesty, I think you're everything that you've said and are doing is on point. It's exactly what I pointed out before you got here. It's nothing but professionalism. Everything you said just now is how you handle things. Is exactly how you're supposed to do it. There's not a single thing that you said tonight that's changed my mind. You're doing absolutely beautiful. That's not easy to do. It's not your job. You find out, because believe me, like I said, wait till you get some years underneath your belt. You're gonna really, but you'll find that, yeah, it's hard. It's difficult. It's not always a piece of cake. But no. Now, I have never worked with any one individual. I had to work with hundreds of individuals, and let me tell you.
Right. Right.
But I love it. I think that I love the fact that Paul. This is the part I really love. I love the fact that he had the vision to pick you. That
Yeah.
Believe me, trust me on this.
Yeah.
That is a huge step of faith.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who's, like you said, you mentioned it as a brand, or in my case, Jacek Wosicki with his nightclub, to give me the keys to the car, and to give there and says, okay, there you go. And because sometimes it doesn't always work out.
Right.
And I know that too, because it didn't work out my first time I worked with him.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out. You need to go back and get some more seasoning and get more experience. And then when the time comes again, then you're able to know how to handle it.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, I'm being honest. So yeah, that's very impressive. I'm very impressed. But then again, I always have been. Ever since you and I started on Twitter, I mean, I've always been impressed with this. It doesn't really surprise me that this happened for you. Just like it didn't surprise me at all when it happened for Wendy. I mean, I'm going, yeah, it's a natural progression. That's a natural progression. Some people have the natural talent to do what you're doing. Believe me, not everybody can do your job. If people can sit there, oh, I could do your job. No, you can't. You wouldn't want to. You think it, because it's funny, because you'll see this too, and I'm sure you can relate to this. Yeah. You watch a movie, right? And they show they like in a Hallmark movie, right? And they'll show some local celebrity, like Jesse Metcalf always plays that part. It's a local celebrity comes back to town, after a concert or whatever, and they're gonna set up at a big event, and it's gonna do a big show, and it makes it, and everybody's there, and it looks so perfect. People don't realize how much effort it takes to actually put that stuff together. It is not easy. It is not easy to do, and some people say, I could do that. I heard that a lot of times. I could do your job. Then why aren't you? If you think you got the skills, jump in.
That's right.
But it's not that easy. People come in there, and they get in there, and they crash and burn. And they come back there and say, dude, that's not easy. No. Wow. Now I got to sit around in public here and sit there and say, well, I hope I'm going to be able to use your expertise when the time's right. I would like to try to get your client on this show, though I know I'm very, very tiny. And that's the other thing too. Like I said, you got to be able to, like, I'll be really honest with you. Now, while I like to sit there and say, yes, Ruth, I like to have Paul Greene to come on to this show here. In theory, what I would tell you, if my professional side would tell you, is you can't do it because there's nothing here for your client. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing here. Why am I bringing them here? You got 442 people. And I know there's nobody here. I need to save my client for something more bigger, more exposure. You know, that's how I service my client. That's how I help him the most. And again, even though we're friends, the professional side has to come first. Though I will do my best to persuade you otherwise off after we're done.
Right. No, I hear you. No, I hear you. And you know, I will say that it's not always about numbers either. I mean, numbers are important, yes.
Yeah.
But it's also about having a positive experience and being able to have an authentic discussion, and a discussion that's laid back. I mean, you know, you're just like totally, you know, you're laid back, you're interested, you just, it's a very positive experience for me, and you treated me with respect, and that goes a long way. I mean, I appreciate that you're doing that, because, you know, sometimes it's very easy for someone to say, well, I'm going to have Ruth on my show because I want to get to Paul. But that was never what your and I'm not saying that I go around and think that that's what everybody's doing. That's not what I'm saying.
You were surprised.
Yeah.
You were surprised. I sent out a note, and I was asking people if they want to be interviewed on the show, and I sent one to you, and you came back and says, are you talking about my client? I'm going, no, not at all. I don't want to interview Paul. I want to interview you. And you were like, I could literally see your mouth doing this.
Oh yeah, it did. It was because that's just not what I'm used to. And that told me a lot. It's like, oh, okay, well, sure, I'd be honored. I mean, how great is that? And so it's not always, I mean, numbers are important, but you could have a really big show, and if you don't treat if your whole perspective, and I'm not saying it's you, but if the person's whole perspective is, well, I'm just going to get dirt, and I'm just going to have, you know, I'm just going to be asked questions that to just get to their shocking, yeah. I mean, yeah, like the old Jerry Seinfeld show. Why did people tune in? Because they wanted to fight. You know that.
Jerry. Basically turned into right-wing radio. That's, you know, like going like a
yeah. I mean, that's what people. So you could have a huge audience, but if you're going to come away having a negative experience, then there's no point in doing it. Whereas sometimes those small ones can be some of your best experiences. And so I'm not saying that it's off the table at all. I mean, you know, we'll see how things go, and maybe in the future that'll work out.
Jeanette says, Paul was on your show, your numbers would be way up. All of his fans would be here. Yeah. I hope so. Oh yeah. Tell you the truth, I'm going to be real honest with you. I was sort of hoping a lot of his fans would come today, because this is a chance, and hats off to you and Kelly for showing up, because now you can understand, you know, to me, I think this is really important for you, for the fans, to actually, you know, this is what a publicist, this is what a personal assistant does. You know, when you see you see them all the time on camera, you'll see them walking next to the star or whatnot. You always sit there and go like, what does that person do? What are their duties? Yeah. Well, now you can come here to something like show like this and find out exactly what those duties are, because a lot of people don't know what it takes to go to be a publicist or to be an assistant. And I think once you understand how things work, it makes it a lot more fun for you, the fan, as well. You know? So but luckily for us, we have replay. So
Yes.
so they all can come back. And normally I do a 90-minute show, but I knew
Mm.
that this show was going to be longer. I knew it, and I planned on it. No, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I wanted to go because
Okay, that's good. That's good.
This is a rare chance for people to see how things work on the other side.
Yeah.
As far as this goes. And
Yeah.
I don't get very many. I don't. In fact, you're the first personal assistant I've actually interviewed.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
so this is a educational, somewhat of an educational,
Yeah.
more like a refresher course maybe, but this
Right.
is like for me as well.
Yeah.
So I've gained a lot from this interview as well.
Oh,
And
good.
how like I said before too, it's like how could you not have respect and admiration for you? You've always conducted yourself elegantly and professionally, and more important, kind. You were kind, and I think that's what Paul Greene saw. I'm sure he saw your Twitter feed,
Mhm.
Ruth. I'm sure he saw
Mhm.
it. I'm sure he saw
Mhm.
how you interacted with people, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that's part of the reason why. And I know it is. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why he approached you and wanted you to come
Mhm.
and work with him because of how you conducted yourself.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, Kelly. Yes, I'm grateful for you guys.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so, I hope that you guys will hit my sub to me,
Yeah.
so we can stay in touch. I really would enjoy
Right.
that, and I would
Right.
and I will return the favor. Um, I do want to let you go because I kept you way past time,
That's all
and
right.
actually I gotta go to work after this. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I got tomorrow and the next day to prep for. But
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to say thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for the chat, for hanging out with us. I know this was a long one, but thank you so much. These interviews like this, I'll be honest with you, I do for me. I did this for
Yeah.
me. I love these type of interviews. I'm glad for anybody that came out to support, but even if it was just you and me in a room with a cup of
Yeah.
coffee, and this
Yeah.
is something I would love to do.
Right.
I want to thank you, Ruth, so much for giving me being generous with me with your time and your answers are very thoughtful and thought out and very enlightening. Um, wow, we got to do it again soon.
That's right. That's right.
When the book comes out, how about
Yes.
that? When Paul's
Yes.
book comes out, or you release your own music, then
Yep.
we'll come back and talk about that.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a plan. Well, Patrick, thank you for having me. It's been honestly great, and we'll make sure that I know that there were people who said they were to come, and sometimes they forget, but we'll make sure to at least for people to be able to watch the replay because I'm sure that
Sure.
people will watch
Yeah,
the replay.
that's where most of my viewers come from anyway
Yeah.
from replay.
Right.
No, I'm not worried about it at all. Not at all. I like I said, I had a total blast. I met Jeanette. I met Kelly. That's awesome. So I'm very happy about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, stay right where you're at. I'm gonna go ahead and end this, and
Okay.
then we'll talk off camera for one more minute,
Okay.
and then I'll let you go. All
Okay.
right, folks. Hopefully, if you like what you saw, please hit the subscription button. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with Mike Markoff, actor Mike Markoff. He's one of my very favorite human beings and a sensational actor. And he will have a lot of stories, and we will talk about our mutual love of coffee.
Oh.
Yes. And then he'll tell his story about working like 70 stories down in an old salt mine.
Wow.
He made a film. He did a series, and he was like 70. He was like 70 stories down an old salt mine.
Mm.
That's a crazy story.
Wow.
All right, folks, that's it for us. So I will see you tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Bye bye.